Hey everyone, welcome to Rock Bottom Syndicate. I'm your host, Joyce Strong. Rock Bottom Syndicate is about people who have a story to tell to inspire others to keep working toward their potential, no matter what happens in your life. Rock Bottom is an opportunity to learn, pivot, and adapt to whatever life throws your way. Rock Bottom is a time where you can choose to take responsibility for everything in your life, because when you take responsibility, you gain control to change things for yourself. Your secrets are the prisoner of your emotions, so ask for help and tell your story. My guest, Heather Gross, has indeed told her story, and she's done it in a book. Her book title is Headstrong, a young stroke survivor's journal and workbook. You can reach Heather at her website, heathersfight.com, on Facebook at Heather's Fight, and also on LinkedIn, Heather Gross. So I encourage you to reach out to her. She would love to answer your questions and tell you about her book, which will be coming out very soon. The episode is a two-part series, so she's going to tell us about what happened in her life, and then on part two, more about the adaptation to the disabilities and the struggle, and how she kept focusing on the bright side and leaning into the situation to be able to come up with solutions and adaptations. A really beautiful woman, very positive story in the end, even though the situation was difficult. So I hope you will enjoy the show. I hope you'll reach out to Heather and to me with your questions. If you have a rock bottom story, I'd love to be a person who can sit with you and listen to you tell your story and help you to share it to help others, inspire others. So thanks a lot and enjoy the show. So Heather, I met you through another coach. And he said that you had things go on in your life that were incredible in terms of how you've challenges you've had to deal with, and then how you've dealt with those challenges. And he said, here's somebody you really need to talk to for Rock Bottom Syndicate, which is really about people looking at challenges as opportunities.
Yes, I believe we all have challenges in life. They look different for each and every one of us, but we all have a choice in how we react to them.
Yeah. So can you tell me your story right from the very beginning? Because I just know you as an incredible woman who is writing a book, and I really don't know much more about you other than our brief chat that we had. So can we start from the beginning?
Yes, so I have been born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am currently 30 years old, but 7 years ago, I had a brain hemorrhage in my sleep. I woke up one morning and the whole left side of my body felt like pins and needles, kind of like when your arm falls asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the emergency room and they found that the brain hemorrhage was caused by a tumor in my brain that is made up of really weak blood vessels. It's actually called a cavernous malformation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a fairly rare disease, so they didn't really know much about them. They believe you're born with them, and I just went 23 years of my life without knowing I had it. And the only cure is brain surgery to remove the tumor. However, mine was really, really deep in my brain. It was actually, they called it in probably the worst place possible. And it was on top of my brain stem. And if you know anything about the brain stem kind of controls all your vital organs and, you know, your breathing. And it's just a very dangerous location to go into surgically. So they advised me not to have the surgery because they felt like it would do more harm than good, and to just live my best life. And, you know, sometimes these lesions only bleed once in a person's lifetime. So we were hoping that it wouldn't bleed again. And 6 months later, after that, it bled again. And that's when I started, you know, really stressing about, you know, is, you know, the wait and watch approach, is this the best option for me? So I started getting second opinions from different neurosurgeons across the country. My parents and I traveled to Chicago a couple times to see a neurosurgeon there who specializes in these lesions. And he agreed that due to the location of mine, it was inoperable, and to just kind of wait and see and hope for the best. And I was doing this all while I was a full-time college student, and I was trying to live every day, like I didn't have a bleeding thing in my brain. And it, which at times was hard. There were a lot of false alarms. Every headache I would get, every just weird feeling or vision change, I would freak out thinking, is my brain bleeding again? Because it's not like a little bell goes off when it happens. So we went to the emergency room a lot of times, and luckily a lot of those times there were no new bleeds. However, it did bleed a third time, probably a couple months after the second one. And at that point, the neurosurgeon I was following in Chicago had recommended a controversial treatment, which is called gamma knife surgery. It's localized radiation, and the goal was to shoot the radiation into my lesion, and over the next year or two, it would harden the blood vessels so they would stop bleeding. So I ended up having that procedure done, while I sent my scans to other neurosurgeons in California to get other opinions. And they did recommend, the surgeons in California did recommend surgery to remove my lesion. They felt like my lesion was being very aggressive and it kept bleeding, so they wanted to take it out. However, after I prayed long and hard on, the hardest decision I had faced yet in my life, whether to have the surgery or not, I did decide not to have it, just because the surgeon who saw me in person, excuse me, he, I was doing very well despite the bleeds. I was recovering after each one. I was still in school. I was still competing in horseback riding. And I just decided I'm just going to wait and see. I felt that was the best decision for me. And then my lesion bled another couple times, once right after Thanksgiving in 2012. And then the fifth and final brain hemorrhage happened in my sleep. I actually woke up the next morning and was completely paralyzed on my left side. And they rushed me to the ICU. I was, then the neurosurgeon was recommending the surgery because he said it was going to kill me if I didn't get it out. Excuse me, I'm going to drink some water. And I had a 9-hour craniotomy, and they removed the lesion entirely. They didn't know what my deficits were going to be when I woke up from surgery, which fortunately, cognitively, I was not affected. I was still left paralyzed on my left side due to the stroke I had in my sleep prior to the surgery. But I then started my fight to regain my life back, and I worked hard. I was in inpatient rehab. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I was in inpatient rehab for a couple months where I had to relearn how to walk. I had to learn how to live one-handed since I didn't have any use of my left hand. And I fought hard every day. And there were days I wanted to give up. I'm 23 years old. I'm paralyzed. This is not what a 23-year-old should be worrying about. And, my mom, she told me that she read a book somewhere that all you have to do today is make your bed. And if that's all you can do, then great. If you can do more, then even better. So I kind of kept that motto that, there were days I didn't do much of my therapy, or, maybe all I did was make my bed. But there were also days I really gave it my all. And I got out of a wheelchair about 4 months after the stroke, and I took a semester off of school, but I did go back to college, and I graduated with my bachelor's degree with honors. And I got married, and I started a career And I bought my own house. I unfortunately ended up getting divorced from my first marriage, but I did not give up. I still have this attitude of pushing through, and I decided to write a book about my story, not because there are many people who've had a stroke or brain surgery at a young age, but because I want to help people. Sorry.
That's okay.
I want to help people overcome life's challenges. You know, life's challenges are inevitable, but the one thing we do have control over is how we react to them. And I chose, when this happened to me, to not let it define me, not let it make me who I am. It's a part of me and it's a part of my story, but I am going to rise above it, and I'm going to make the best out of the life I do have. And that's kind of my message I want to get across, which I'm happy to announce I'm almost done editing my book, and hopefully we'll be selling it to a publisher soon, and I'll be getting it out, the word out, to help people across the world, and just inspire people to keep going.
So does your book have a title yet?
Yes, it's going to be called Headstrong.
Uh-huh.
So I had to get the head part in because of the brain surgery. It's going to be called Headstrong, a young stroke survivor's journal, and then there's going to be a workbook in it, because after each chapter, actually, my parents have written a couple paragraphs about their perspective of as a caregiver, because that can also be a very big challenge for people when you're caring for somebody you love who's going through a hard time or a health crisis. And they're kind of sharing their experiences and how they got through that, as seeing their young daughter go through this. And, you know, my mom slept next to my hospital bed for 2 months when I was in the ICU and never left my side. And she did meet a really nice nurse who told her about a secret shower place that she could go get a shower every once in a while. So, but we've met amazing people through this journey, and I am very blessed. I still have struggles. I still don't really have much use of my left hand. However, I live a very fulfilling life. I work full time. I am getting remarried. I'm writing a book, which is amazing. And I just want to help people, and I believe God gave me the second chance to help people.
Wow, that's such an incredible story. And to think of trying to put it in the perspective of somebody just starting out in their life, it's quite moving and hard to get my head, like, how would I have done that? You know, that feeling.
But I know if someone would have told me 10 years ago that this was going to happen to me, I would have said, there's no way I could get through that.
Yeah.
Like, you're crazy. But I think we all are stronger than we give ourselves credit. Mm-hmm. And you don't know until you're in that situation. I think when we're faced with a situation that we have two options, either give up or fight, mm-hmm. most of us are more than capable of fighting through that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In earlier, as you were telling your story, you said there were times that you felt like giving up. Mm-hmm. And what was going on, or how long did those periods last for you?
Well, it would vary. I mean, anybody who has had a massive stroke or been paralyzed, the recovery process is extremely slow. Mm-hmm. And there were times when I didn't think I was ever going to walk again, and I felt like giving up. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live my life in a wheelchair. And I felt like I wasn't moving forward. I was jealous of my friends that were the same age who were getting married and like traveling the world. And here I am at home with my parents, where they had to give me 24/7 care. I was completely dependent on them. Even something as simple as bathing, like my mom had to help bathe me, and that was just really hard for me to do. I would let myself feel those emotions, and they might last, weeks. I might be in kind of a slump. However, I kept my mind on just more like short attainable goals than looking at the big picture of, okay, I want to walk again. I would look at, okay, for the next month, I'm going to do my therapy every single day for 2 hours or 4 hours. And that then gave me the push to stay motivated, because if we set smaller goals for ourselves to get us to our big goal, that gives you the confidence when you reach those smaller goals. You're like, oh, I got this. I'm making progress. So, I that's how I got through it. And, and then when I started to see that progress slowly building and building, it kept me motivated and looking, I was getting closer to the big goal. And then when that big goal happened and I started walking on my own, that was, just the greatest achievement I could ever have.
So have being able to break the goals down into small, achievable, rewarding things, you're able to ultimately get this goal that seemed too big in the beginning. Yeah.
Exactly.
This is so critical to just life in general, and trying to change and improve or cope with a challenging situation. And I'll find myself talking with clients this way and say, well, what have you tried, or what has worked? Were there other things in your toolbox beside focusing on those small goals? Were there people? Were there books? What else influenced you?
I was extremely blessed with an amazing support system. My family, my parents, like I said, who helped co-write the book with me. They loved me. They loved me on my bad days, and they kept, me motivated, because it became, I didn't want to let them down either. This was about me, but I didn't want to let them down. I saw how hard it was on them to see me struggle and go through this. And, really my faith, my faith in God, who could, make miracles happen. And, I just seeing the little changes that would happen every day and appreciating what I did have. So I think it's all about perspective. What happened to me was awful. It could have been a lot worse. They didn't know if I was going to be cognitively affected. They didn't know if I'd be able to talk anymore. And, it could always be worse. And there are people out there a lot less fortunate. So looking at what I did have really helped me as well. And I think that's something we could all do, is instead of, in the book, I talk about making a list of everything you have, like, and be simple. Like, okay, I have a roof over my head. I have food in my kitchen. I have clothes. And then making another list about everything you want. And not that it's a bad thing that you want things, because I think wants in our lives are very important, because that keeps us motivated to working hard every day. However, I think really writing down everything we do have in the simplest of forms, air in my lungs, that, I was so thankful for the medical community who saved my life, because we're very lucky in Pittsburgh. They have great hospitals and doctors, and my neurosurgeon who did my brain surgery actually is world renowned, and he's just a great person. He came into my room every single day to check on me, where most top neurosurgeons would just send their little entourage and call it a day, as long as there's nothing major going on. But we all have to be grateful for the things we have. And some days that's easier to, realize than others, but we all have something to be grateful for.
So that the act of expressing gratitude, noticing, actually doing a workbook exercise to help you to really be aware of it is important part of the medicine that you took.
Well, it is. I think, I wholeheartedly believe in journaling.
Yeah.
I mean, not just for the current state you're in, but in the future. I mean, what my dad actually kept so many notes through my journey, because he would send emails to our family who's scattered all over the country, and he called them Heather updates. And he kept every single one, documenting every step of my journey. And now when we went to write the book, it was just so amazing to read and relive those moments. And so I think writing things down, your feelings, I think it's easier to write your feelings down than to even think like in your head, oh, this is how I'm feeling right now. So, journaling, talking to family and friends, I mean, keeping yourself with a support system is just so key.
I started this podcast because I recognized how at any given point when we can be in a rock bottom moment, what feels like our rock bottom, and like you say, can always get worse. But when you're there, it feels like it can't get worse, right?
Yes, and that we all have our rock bottom, and like I said earlier, it all looks different for each and every one of us. And I don't want you to minimize that, because it is horrible and it is your rock bottom.
Yeah.
But there is a way up, and there is a way to get through it. You will get through it. I love that quote that if you look past all your past struggles in life, you have 100% success rate of getting through those. And that's just such a great quote, because we do. I mean, everything. When I was a little kid and I skinned my knee, I thought that was the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But I got through it. And, so when I had the stroke and brain surgery, I've gotten through 100% of the things in the past that have happened to me. I can do this.
Wow. That's really a nice quote. Yeah. I wonder about the caregiver side of it. I actually interviewed a woman who got into this on Rock Bottom. She's started a business called Everyday Caregivers. She was a caregiver, and the stress of it caused her to have a very difficult rock bottom period where she was actually having suicidal ideation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my mom, she went through PTSD after.
Did she?
After everything happened, and she talks about that in the book.
Yeah.
How hard it was for her to go through that, and to watch her child fighting for her life and not knowing what that was going to look for. And I think the hardest part from a caregiver, especially for my mom, was I was 23 years old. I was an adult at this point. I was away at college. And then all of a sudden I'm back home and she's having to bathe me and feed me and do all this stuff. And it was like I kind of went back to being a baby, or I was completely dependent on her, and just how hard that was as a parent to see your child, being so dependent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's important to address what happens on both sides of things, and what can we do that's meaningful and helpful in the immediate situation. That always interests me, because it can be a pivotal point for the caregiver or for the person being helped to make a good decision or a bad, to keep fighting or to give up. So I'm interested in those, like just the fact that the person's there for you to do these simple things.
Mm-hmm. No, I think if we look at what can we do today that's going to help us tomorrow, and and just taking it day by day, because I mean, we all know every day is a gift, and we don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. But instead of, again, focusing on the smaller goals that are more attainable and can keep you motivated, I remember when I was first walking and I had a cane, and I was, the goal then was to be able to walk without a cane.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do laps around my parents' house with my cane, and I would say each day, okay, I'm going to beat my record yesterday by 2 laps, or, and just, which in the moment, it wasn't a very big thing, but it ended up helping me in the long run. So, whether that be you just get out of bed today and make your bed and shower, or go for a walk outside, that it might seem small, but it actually is going to lead to an even bigger victory.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's so impressive to think of all the things that you've accomplished now with your career, your marriage, or your upcoming marriage. Congratulations. And then birthing this book.
Yes.
And to help people.
Yes, we've ever since the brain surgery, my dad and I talked about writing a book. So it's been 7 years of us talking about it. And finally we just said, we just need to do it. Instead of talking about it, let's just take action and do it. And it's been an amazing experience. It's been extremely therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
Because, writing all that stuff out, and it gives it a purpose that I went through this, but I'm going to use it to help other people.
Yeah.
And Andrew, I mean, I had no idea how to write a book. I write things like maybe a blog here or there, but I'm not a professional writer by any means. And he makes it so easy and keeps you encouraged. But with the goal of helping people, and it's also going to open up a lot of doors for me. I hope to do some public speaking. I hope to, reach as many people as I can. So it's been an incredible journey, and it's still going.
And what?
And I said, it's been an incredible journey, but it's still going. I'm only 30. I got a lot of life left to live.
Yeah, no kidding. I love the giving the purpose to what's happened, and how that's just so energized and fueled you, right, like beyond all the trauma that you went through.
Yes, everything has a purpose. I don't think there's any accidents. I think everything that happens to us, there is a purpose behind it. Yeah. And you just have to look to how you can use that for good, whether that be, helping other people, whether that's, giving us a different perspective, giving us empathy towards other people struggling. I mean, there's lots of different ways. It doesn't have to be you're going to write a book. But if you want to, great. But it just, there's no accidents. Everything is purpose driven, and you just have to look and see, what good is going to come out of this.
Yeah, that's your faith right there. And it's just, I keep thinking, well, what if this didn't happen? I wonder if you would have become a writer, if you would have written the book, if you would have helped so many people, and we can never know these things. Yes. So it's just this faith and perspective and your interpretation that's creative and healing. It's taking you to that place, and you're just naturally going there.
Yeah, and during my one thing I forgot to mention was, when my brain, when I still had the lesion and it was bleeding, we kept praying, please stop, don't ever bleed again, don't let it bleed again. And I went through a really dark time of questioning my faith, because I felt like God wasn't listening, and where are you, God? Are you even real? And then after the 5th and final bleed, my neurosurgeon said actually the 5 bleeds I had over those 11 months had pushed the lesion to a little bit safer of a location in my brain, that it was a little easier for them to get to, which he thinks is why I had such a great recovery. So it was, what I wanted to happen actually fell much short of what the greater thing that was going to happen, of getting it actually out of my head for good, so I never have to think about it again.
Wow. Wow. And so faith restored.
Yes.
Yeah. We're about out of time at this point, so I want to make sure people know how to reach you. HeathersFight.com is your website, and also your Facebook page, and on LinkedIn, Heather Gross. And I'm going to add that to the show notes as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, please, anybody who wants to reach out, has questions about my story or would like to share theirs with me, I'm open and I'm here to help people in any way I can.
Wow, that's very beautiful. Thank you so much for telling your story.
Oh, thank you, Joyce, for having me and letting me have the platform to share it.
You're welcome.